Roll call taker, do the roll call, please.
Alderman Lazara.
Here?
Alderman Jacob.
Here.
Alderman Winger.
Here.
Alderman Catalano.
Here.
Alderman Sismarski.
Here.
Alderman Roy Wesley. Alderman Woods.
Here.
Alderman Eugene Wesley.
Here.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the meeting on March 13, 2014. Do I have a second?
Second.
Question?
Just asking, it's already been changed, but item number 3, apparently Alderman Roy Wesley made a motion and seconded his own motion. It's been corrected already, though. Is that good?
Okay, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Against?
Abstain.
That passes. Report and recommendation, First Amendment intergovernmental agreement between the County of DuPage and the Village of Elk Grove Village regarding the Bussey Woods Dam and Salt Creek Watershed Flood Control Project, and the not-to-exceed amount of $12,500. That is my motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions? Alderman Wesley?
Question, why is some of these towns cheaper than ours? Someone care to
James?
answer?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the question, Alderman Wesley. Basically, the amounts were determined by the county. They coordinated that with all the communities. And so they basically, they wouldn't really give us a precise reason why the different amounts, but that's just how they ended up after they asked each community to participate.
How did they calculate it out?
I'm sorry.
How did they calculate that out? How did they come up with that dollar amount?
Jeremy, go ahead.
Are you talking about the 12,500?
Yeah, we're giving 12,500, but then there's Oak Brook's giving 3,000, and Hinsdale is giving 25, and Elmhurst giving 5,000. I mean,
Yeah,
Go ahead, Jeremy.
the participation costs were $196,000 total, and that was split in half. The county paid half, and then the remaining was to be paid by the remaining 8 communities. And so, given that all 8 communities, aren't involved and aren't at the full maximum amount, I would assume, I haven't really been able to get a legitimate answer on this, but I would assume that Elk Grove Village is then just paying more out of their pocket to make up for that.
Jeremy, are we pretty much in the last phase of this? Go ahead.
Well, right now, we're basically at the point where they've finished the preliminary design, the final design, and they're putting together the optimization of all the Salt Creek flooding apparatus with the county downstream. They're coordinating to optimize all those flooding mechanisms. So they've finished that, and right now they're obtaining permits from the Illinois Department of Natural Resources and a few other organizations or agencies. And once they have all those permits, then the construction is planned to begin next year, in 2015, to actually to effect the improvements on the dam.
So where do you see it right now? If it's, are we 50%, 60% there as far as this project? Where are we at? I mean, what phase would you call this?
I believe there was, phase 1 was the study and the design, and then phase 2 would be construction. So I would say they're halfway there, and then the construction is next year.
So there's no way for us to anticipate how much more is going to be coming out of our pockets on this?
No, there isn't. That's why I gave the estimate of the construction costs at $2.75 million, and we don't know what they're going to ask at that juncture.
Do you have the number of what we're at so far? How much have we invested in this project?
Yeah, the city has not invested anything yet. The city's just approved funding to invest, and this tonight is the final version of the IGA that commitment to funding is for. So the city hasn't put any money into this yet, and this final agreement, by signing it, would commit the city to pay $12,500.
Okay. Alderman Jacobs?
I kind of have the same question that Alderman Eugene Wesley had. Is there a way we could find out how these dollar values came up with? Because it's like a couple of us are 12.5. We got one's 5,000, one's 3,000.
Go ahead.
while you, and Jeremy's right, you kind of get a cryptic answer. In talking with others, it seems to be creek impact, our direct access to the creek and our percentage along the creek.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense. If that,
Thank you.
Alderman Woods?
Help me with, what are we signing the agreement for? I mean, over a year ago, we approved the 7,500 and the 13,000, even though we haven't spent that money or expended that yet, correct? We're gonna give them, but now we're signing an agreement. We already agreed to pay, we're gonna write them a check. What else does that agreement lock us into? I mean, we talked about the construction, we don't know what that amount is, so is that locking into us into an unknown amount or portion of that 2.75 million? That's my concern.
Go ahead, Chairman.
Well, yeah, that is I think the chief concern for you to consider is if we do commit to the 12,500, we might be too far along in the process later on to then, not participate during the construction phase. So that's kind of the decision that I wanted you all to decide. But yeah, it would make sense that we would want to help out in the construction phase if we helped out in the design phase, but ultimately, it would be up to the council.
Alderman Woods, you got a follow?
Yeah, well, and it sounds like, and I don't know if Jeff knows anymore, that they're pretty far along and know kind of what the numbers are. There must be some kind of game plan. I mean, that's all we get is we don't know. It's gonna cost 2.75 million, and somebody may pay for it at some point in time. I mean, that
Jeff,
just doesn't make sense to me.
You got an answer for him?
Yeah, I mean, going back to what you previously said, obviously, we got some direction from the council that they would, in theory, be on board with the project, which got us to this point, which has taken, I don't know, 9 or 10 months to even get the IGA together with the county. So it takes quite a bit of time, and there's multiple players involved. So, I mean, this project has moved extremely slow.
Right, but my
Go ahead.
understanding was, okay, so we approved the 7,500, and then conversely, the 12,500, or whatever that number was, 12,250. But that was to engineer the project and then find out what those, and also find out what the benefits would be to us. So you're telling me the project's gonna be 2.75 million. Nobody's even told me I'm gonna reap any benefit. I'm okay, we spent the money, we said we agreed to do the engineering to find out, because that made sense. But right now I don't have any information to know if I'm gonna reap a benefit even.
Jeff?
Yeah, their study, I believe, we've given that to you before. Basically, it's a long laundry list of numbers and precipitation totals from different storm events. And what it boils down to is in some of the storm events, this would have helped Wooddale, and some of them it wouldn't have mattered, but there was a net positive impact if the project was completed, and that's what we talked about in the past. I remember there was some council members that maybe didn't want to participate, and the consensus was, well, if this study helps at all, that it's a positive benefit for Wooddale. Now, I understand we don't know our share of the construction costs, maybe it's zero, I don't know, I doubt it. But this document, to me, is not locking us into the construction, but we are going down that road by committing to the study. But we've already ventured down that road, approving doing the study. Now, this is just the IGA for the actual sign-off.
Mayor?
Last
Oh,
one.
I'm sorry,
Just
go ahead, Art. Go on.
To continue on this is, so, as we're going down this, and I remember the study and all the, rainfalls and years and, blah, 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 it would have worked. And so we're gonna do this construction project, was create a dam, and theoretically, we're gonna open that dam, lower the water level. I think the big issue then was, who's gonna control that? What's the controlling mechanism that does that? So that very well may be a good project if it's done correctly and they open it at the right time and close it at the right time.
Would that be answered in the study? something like that?
I don't think that that was covered in the study.
It wasn't? Go ahead, Don.
In the meetings that I went to regarding this, the county stormwater committee are going to be responsible or are hoping that they're going to be responsible for this portion of it. So DuPage County is working up some other agreements with these other factions to make sure that they are or have their fingers on who is going to be controlling the mechanism, when it goes down, when it comes up, and those kind of things. So it sounds like the county is going to have a pretty big role in this. Obviously, they're footing half the bill for the project to start with, or at least from here. So the county seriously wants to be involved in the raising and lowering, because, I mean, it has a effect for them. Because whatever comes out of Bussey Woods Reservoir affects pretty much DuPage County.
All right, I think it's almost
Thank you.
clear that we have to do something. And that, you know, if this $12,500 that we spend, you know, is gonna help our city with this, then we've got to go through it. Mayor?
Basically, the first study they did, or we did with Elk Grove, the impact, I think, when we got all the numbers back, was very minimal. We sat back here, I think we had Itasca here, joint meeting with the engineers, gave us very minimal impact to us and Itasca at the time.
Okay.
And we weren't looking to go any further until the county stepped in and said, we're gonna ask for some extra charts on how the water flows and how it's controlled, and that's when they stepped in on our behalf, the communities, and that's where we're at today, and
Okay,
supposedly we
I'm
should.
gonna take just one more question, and then I'm gonna call for vote. Peter?
If, I'm assuming all the municipalities here have to sign off on it. If one of them backs out, like, let's say Elmhurst doesn't come up with their 5,000, are they gonna ask for more money from the rest of us, so we would have to chip in additional?
Go ahead, Chairman.
At this point, I wouldn't say yes. If we're approving it in the not-to-exceed, format, we wouldn't, be able to allow any additional money to go to that unless we came back to you. But no, that the amount is basically finalized, and that's why we have this final agreement in front of us. And I don't believe anybody can make any changes at this point, so.
Alderman Wesley, did you have another question?
Yeah, I have a couple now that raised here. So far, we gave, if we approve this, it would be $12,500, and we already approved for first phase $7,000. That ain't total of what we had paid for this project already. Am I correct? We paid the first phase for this project? The first study we did.
Who wants to answer that? Jeff?
I don't remember if that was part of the same study, if we paid the $7,000 out, or if it was, at first, the initial cost was gonna be $7,000 and then they raised it to 12. I honestly don't recall.
Let's-
Jeremy, did you think you know?
Yes, I have looked at the history of this, and it was just an increase in the commitment amount, not any actual payouts or.
Okay, let's do a follow-up. So, when this was proposed to us several years ago, last year or the year before, it was to my understanding when we started this whole project is that we could back out of this at any time. So what I'm hearing tonight is we approved a $12,500. I'm hearing we may be locked in for construction of this project. No. That's what I'm getting for the feedback that.
No, I didn't hear that. Jeff, can you?
But I want
No.
to make sure we are not locked in, because I'll tell you one thing,
But I think Jeff just said
Yeah, we're not locked in. What we're trying to say is, you're starting down the road. I mean, you're gonna pay $12,500 for a study. I mean, obviously, I think it's somewhat of a good idea. You're probably not gonna say it's not a good idea down the road, and you're probably gonna participate down the road. It's not locking you in, though.
Yeah, I think, again, we owe it to ourselves to do this study. Again, Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, we're not obligated to the construction, is that correct?
we don't know.
We're just obligated to the engineering.
According to this agreement, I don't see anything that locks us in.
Well, then that's,
But as my follow-up is, I don't want to be tell you the truth, spending this kind of money in the last meeting we had with the engineer, it benefits us very little, okay? I'll do another follow-up on a meeting here.
But how can that, how can
That's
you
what our
think
own
that?
engineer said when they were here. They
But it's
said-
water in Bussy Woods that affects us. Is that not true? Does Bussy Woods water affect us?
Yes, it does, but
Okay.
our own engineer looked at the report and said it did not benefit us hardly at all. So are we not believing our own engineer that we had here in-house?
Go ahead,
Then don't
Jeff.
pay for any more engineering.
Jeff?
I mean, it's really kind of deja vu. We had this exact same conversation 9 months ago, and the same parties are arguing the same things, and we ended up voting in favor. And this is the ratification of the last time we discussed this.
Right, because we approved this, and this is basically
This is the official
$5,500, or is it $5,000 more? Right.
No, you approved this amount before. It's actually $250 more from the last approval, now
Okay.
that they've finalized with all the
All right,
communities.
last question, Mayor?
The reason this number jumped, what happened was, there was some grant money that was gonna be used, and because there was an issue with the Cook County Forest Preserve in DuPage County was not getting the responses they wanted from Cook County Forest Preserve. DuPage County backed off, and then when Cook County finally agreed, the grant money's over, that's why the extra cost. And again, there was minimal benefit to us in the first phase of this study. This is the second phase, probably a little more detailed. Again, the county has asked for some specific items that would impact us in a more beneficial way. It's not gonna completely get rid of the flooding along the creek, but if it's a 20% or 30% reduction, and when the time comes for the build-out or whatever that's gonna be, then we'll have to make that decision.
Okay, let's
And
let's
that's-
call the.
That's my
where's this-
understanding.
Where's this money coming from? What account?
Eugene, we're going to call to vote on this, and then if it fails, it fails, if it passes.
Well, then
Um,
I want the floor open for more questions.
Okay, let's just take roll call, please.
Roll call is committing to it.
Eugene?
I have more questions.
Go ahead, give him the cash, let him ask the question.
Okay,
Where's the money coming?
all right,
I mean,
Mayor?
where's the money coming from? Is it in the budget, or is it not? Or are we waiting till next year's budget? I just want to know where the money's coming from.
Does anyone know? Jeff?
The one night I told Brad not to come to the meeting.
Well, again, we're approving a $12,000, $12,500. We don't know where the money coming from, and after last board meeting that I see, everyone's concerned about
Well,
the budget. I want to know where the money's coming from.
typically, something like this would be taken out of the CIP, not out of the general fund budget. And keep in mind, in this current fiscal year we're in, not the one we're talking about next year, we've come in under on some projects.
It's in the budget.
Again, the CIP project, it was earmarked for CIP projects to do in our community. Now you're taking money out, other CIP projects, or because it came down budget. So this was not initially in the CIP budget for last year.
Well,
7,500 was, but
again,
not-
even if it wasn't, the council can do whatever they want and vote for it, and it really wouldn't matter if it was budgeted for at this point.
It was, we should have it in the budget.
No, not that much.
Alderman Woods?
Yeah, I was gonna say, just from my memory, we had the 7,500, we committed. We already committed to 12,500. We already approved it. I mean, it's just, I know what you're saying, but we already approved it. So somewhere in there, somebody should have, I'm sure Brad's got a,
It's got a note.
little note somewhere that we have that money. So, I mean, at that point, I don't know why we're arguing about it. That's why I was confused. It's just a matter of it took them 9 months to write the agreement. We already approved the money 9 months ago.
Jeff?
Technically, when we did approve it 9 months ago, it was 12,225, and now that they've got all the paperwork done and ready and the official IGA, it's 12,500.
Right, I asked you that question 10 minutes ago. Can we take a vote, please? Roll call?
Alderman Lazara?
Yes?
Alderman Jacob?
Yes.
Alderman Winger? Yes. Alderman Catalano?
Yes.
Alderman Sizmarsky? Yes. Alderman Woods?
Yes.
Alderman Eugene Wesley?
No.
That passes. Report and recommendation award engineering services to Robinson Engineering for a stormwater improvement project in the Woodside subdivision and the not-to-exceed amount of $35,120. That is my motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Questions? Alderman Jacob?
I just have a question for city manager. Is our policy, or by legally, don't we always have to accept the lowest bidder?
Jeff?
On professional services contracts for engineering, for something like this, no. That's not the law, nor have we practiced that following in many years.
Okay, so that's just for actual
Construction
construction.
contracts.
Okay, thank you.
Mike?
When is work on that gonna begin? Do they have a set date they're looking for?
Go.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as we sign the contract, get started, I think probably, I would guess that Robinson, being the professional firm that they are, that they probably already jumped the gun and started doing some initial field work just to hit the ground running, but as soon as we ratify the contract, they're ready to go.
Any other questions? Roll call?
Alderman Lazara.
Yes?
Alderman Jacob.
Yes.
Alderman Winger.
Yes.
Alderman Catalano.
Yes.
Alderman Sizmarsky.
Yes.
Alderman Woods.
Yes.
Alderman Wesley.
Yes.
That passes. Report and recommendation pay request, partial number 4, Williams Brother Construction, Inc., for the NWWTP Upgrades Phase 1B project and the not-to-exceed amount of $961,671.70. That is my motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Questions? I have a question before we okay this, and this might have been something that, in lieu of Maxim, can we get permission, or can we, as a city, call subcontractors and check to see if they were paid? Go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman. We're going to have to take that under legal counsel, so let me check with Pat Bond, and we'll get a response to you hopefully by the next board meeting.
Okay.
But I'm not exactly sure if we're going to be able to do that or not under our contracts.
Yeah, I would appreciate if we can check into that. Any other questions? Eugene, did you have one?
I thought we discussed that on any other contracts went forward, that legally we could put that in there. I thought we had that discussion already.
But I think I think you and I talked about the fact that we already have
Right.
a contract with Williams.
I totally understand that, but now we're going to ask for a legal opinion, which is going to charge us that we already got the legal opinion before, so now we can raise that question again. We got that question answered before, that we could put in our contracts. We talked about that.
Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we need a long, drawn-out legal opinion. What we'll do is when Pat's here at the council meeting, we can simply just ask him, and it'll probably be free of charge.
Okay. Roll call?
Alderman Lazara.
Yes?
Alderman Jacob.
Yes.
Alderman Winger. Alderman Catalano.
Yes.
Alderman Sizmarsky.
Yes.
Alderman Woods.
Yes.
Alderman Wesley.
Yes.
That passes. Report and recommendation, surplus of property. Matt, I'm going to turn that over to you.
Thank you, Chairman. We've got 3 items on the agenda to do a surplus of property this time. We've got a car number 404-11B, which is a Crown Victoria, which was involved in an automobile accident. It's actually been totaled by the insurance company. We've been paid for it, but then the car was returned to us. It's in too bad a shape for us to do anything with it, so what we'd like to do is put it up on auction. The second one is another air conditioning recharging system that has stopped working for us, so we purchased a new one. It's fully, it's got all the parts and pieces, so we think we may be able to get a little bit of something on auction with that one. It's just not meeting the needs of us right now. And the third item is a floor jack that was broke during the use. So basically what we're going to do with that is it's a item we just need to have declared surplus. We will then cut it in half with a torch and throw it in the dumpster or the recycling bin so we can make sure that it doesn't get used by anybody else and hurt anybody in the future. So nobody was injured in the Jack incident. Well,
So Matt, what do you need from council on this?
we just need a recommendation that it's okay to push forward the ordinance to declare all three of those surplus, and then we will put the Crown Vic and the the Robin Air R19 or excuse me R12 air conditioning recharger on public auction, and we'll also at that time scrap the floor jack.
Okay, any questions on this?
I'm going to make that motion.
Have a second? Go ahead, Eugene.
I have one question. So you're putting a car up for auction that's been involved in an accident that was totaled,
Yes, sir.
okay? So someone's going to buy it and drive off with it, or is it that bad? Or my question is liability issue now.
Yeah.
Do we have legal opinion to, because normally we go to municipal auction with our cars.
Go ahead, Matt.
And all things on municipal auction are sold as is, and we don't have any liability with those. So once we turn over the title to the auction company, they claim responsibility for that.
Art?
Yeah, the other thing is, when that thing was totaled, the insurance company tells the state pulls the title. All you get is a salvage title, you don't get a regular title, so that voids out any issues.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Against? That passes. And, let's see, report, agreement of consultant services, amendment number 1, HR Green, Inc., Wooddale, Irving Park Road, Safety Improvement Project. Jeremy, I'm going to turn that over to you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to premise this item quickly with the fact that this all came about when we had some discussions with IDOT and the ICC and Metra, and IDOT stepped up and decided to provide additional funding for these pedestrian warning gates at the railroad crossings. And since they committed, those extra funds, they did it to provide, a much safer environment around the train crossings, not necessarily for a quiet zone. Just want to make that distinction. And I think it will help the city down the road when we do seek a quiet zone designation. So this amendment, it basically just adds $105,001 to the master agreement with HR Green. And this amendment and the overarching master agreement is covered by a combination of federal and state funds. And as the city moves towards obtaining a quiet zone designation, we have to make sure that the projects like this one, include all the necessary improvements and modifications to be in good shape when we eventually seek that designation. So next week at the council meeting, we will have HR Green's project manager here, Dennis Hogan, to address any questions or concerns you have at that meeting. But I'll go ahead and leave you with that.
Okay. Go ahead, Alderman Jacobs.
I'd like to make the motion to approve the agreement for consultant services amendment number 1. to HR
Second.
Green.
Go ahead, Art. Do you have a question?
Yeah, are these gates road crossing gates, or are these gates at the station when the trains stopped?
Go ahead, Justin.
Yeah, these are the small arms that come down over near sidewalks to prevent pedestrians from trying to cross the tracks if they're on the side of the road on a sidewalk, so.
Okay, but so they'll be at the intersections and at the station location, or just the street intersection?
These will be right at the station, at the platform.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? That passes. Items to be considered at future meetings. Intersection Safety Improvement Phase 3 Construction Supervision Contract. Is anything else anyone would like to add to this? No? Nothing else? I'll make a motion to adjourn. Oh, Eugene?
I have a question. This letter that went out for, that I, this thing here on the dais, I don't know if you guys received it tonight, or maybe I missed it last meeting. The proposed screening, landscaping along Metro right away?
Yeah, that was in the budget.
And we discussed about giving the business credit on their water bill, and we discussed about the Metro $500 a day for a flagman, that was in there too?
No, go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, that was back over a year ago when we discussed getting the businesses on board with some type of incentive program to help clean up the area. The council directed us to offer different programs to get their buy-in. This was over a year ago.
And then we taking tax dollars to pay for a flagman on, for Metro?
Go ahead, Jeff.
For that
Well,
project?
unfortunately, with the vicinity that these properties are in and the mandate by council to clear up that area, these trees are close enough to Metra where we would have to provide money for a flagman or the work would never get done. And council made it pretty clear that this was a top priority.
And do you remember what the?
Go
price-
ahead, Eugene.
Could you refresh my memory, what is the price tag of this whole project?
Go ahead, Jeff.
I believe in the CIP, this current year we budget 50, if I'm not mistaken.
It was 50,000.
50,000.
So if you don't do this project before May 1, then it's.
Go ahead, Jeff.
No, we just discussed it for next fiscal year.
Any other questions? Go ahead,
Not a
Mike.
question, I just have, we have a resident here that would like to speak before we adjourn.
Oh, sure, go ahead. If he gets to the podium and identifies himself, please.
Thank you, Mr. Sismarski. Joe Petrello, 300 North Catalpa. I think most of you know me. I've been in front of the council many times speaking about a stormwater drain problem I've had for many, many years. And I was here about 4 weeks ago, and collectively there was a commitment to resolve the situation. So I stand here in front of you thanking you because the situation has been resolved. Matt and his team did a phenomenal job. I hope it's the final solution. Hopefully we won't have any issues down the road. But with the thaw happening and the spring rains about to come, I can honestly tell you that I thank you because I can probably sleep easier a lot more at night. So once again, my thanks.
My phone won't ring as much.
I hope not.
Well, that was nice. Thank you. Anything else? Make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Meeting adjourned.